Rishus, Rabbeinu Rosh Yeshiva shlita, Umoreinu Rosh Yeshiva shlita. It is an honor to be a part of this unbelievable event. My name is Yaakov Gottlieb. I'm 25 years old. I got married a month ago, and I would like to share my story with you all. My full name is Yaakov Shraga. I am named after my great-grandfather, Yaakov Shraga HaKohen Varshaviak. I always knew that my grandfather Zatzal was a ger chassid. As an Anecdote, the Chidush Arim, he survived the war and built a beautiful family in America while keeping a close relationship with the ger Rebbes in Eretz Yisrael. Growing up in a modern Orthodox Dati Leumi home in Israel, I never really knew too much about Chassidas or about my family heritage, but I always felt a strong connection to ger because of my namesake. Before my bar mitzvah, my father took me to get a bracha from the ger Rebbe and from the Rosh Yeshiva, back when that was the thing. I didn't understand why he was making such a big deal about meeting the Rebbe's cousin, but as a 12-year-old, I didn't care too much. We arrived at the Rosh Yeshiva's house while he was home during his afternoon break from Yeshivas Vasemes. We sat in his kitchen and spoke about whatever I wanted. The Rosh Yeshiva gave me so much attention and was unbelievably kind. We then went to the ger beis medrash, where I received a bracha and a tehillim from the Rebbe. Fast forward 7 years, I graduated from Bnei Akiva High School and went on to learn in a Hesder Yeshiva, where I would be in beis medrash for a year and a half and then would be enlisted in the IDF. I hadn't thought much about Rav Shaul or ger since my bar mitzvah, but after Sukkot, in my second year of beis medrash, I saw on the news a breaking headline that Rav Shaul Alter was starting his own community. The article said that at the moment, there was only a small amount of families that had followed him. Therefore, I assumed that the Rosh Yeshiva wouldn't be too hard to get to. He inspired me so much before my bar mitzvah, and I wanted to meet him to tell him that I support him. I had one Haredi friend who I called and asked that maybe he had some way of helping me find Rav Shaul. He told me that he has an uncle who's ger, he's a little bit Chabad, named Yisrael Lev, and he said, give him a call and he could help bring you to the Rosh Yeshiva. I called him, and he told me to come to Elkanah Street in Yerushalayim, where the Rosh Yeshiva would be giving a shir. זה היה לסוגיית אי אמרינן הווידע חצאים. כמה שבועות אחרי שהקהילה קמה. I didn't understand so much from the shir, but I was blown away by the Rosh Yeshiva's energy and excitement towards the sugya. Over the next few months, leading up to my enlistment in the army, I would come from time to time to events in the kehilla. I even came for a Shabbos when the kehilla was davening in a girls' seminary, and I got to speak to the Rosh Yeshiva personally. He wished me good luck and gave me a bracha to come home safely from the army. Serving in the army wasn't easy. It was both tiring and overwhelming on a physical and mental level. I kept my relationship with the Rosh Yeshiva up. Any chance I got to leave the army, I would run to the Rosh Yeshiva's beis medrash to daven, learn, and speak with him and get eitzah about anything I was going through. My first Elul in the army was spent on the Gaza border. I was stationed on a very small base with very few frum soldiers for a few weeks. We had a lot of assignments and very little free time. During Aseret Yimei Tshuva, because of my surroundings, I was feeling very disconnected from the Kedusha of the time that we were in. I was all by myself, with no minyan for slichos, no shofar, and had very little time for cheshbon hanefesh. I decided to send a letter to the Rosh Yeshiva asking him for chizuk in my current situation. And I wrote to him as follows. To my dear and beloved Rebbe, I am writing this letter from a guard post a few hundred meters away from Gaza. I stood at the same post on Rosh Hashanah as well. I am here all by myself. I was chazan on Rosh Hashanah for a small minyan that we put together, and I tried to be mechazik my friends with divrei Torah from the Rosh Yeshiva. I have with me on the border a tehillim that the Pnei Menachem Zchus Yagen Aleinu gave my father 30 years ago. There are a lot of challenges in the army that I have to deal with every day. Trying to daven with kavana after being up all night on a mission, using free time to learn when being tired. I feel, I wrote, that because of the lack of time I have for myself and my disconnection I have from yeshiva and from you, I feel mamish lost trying to do tshuva before Yom Kippur. I'm trying to make a cheshbon hanefesh, but I feel broken. If it would be possible, the Rosh Yeshiva maybe could give me a bracha and give me some chizuk for my current situation. Your Talmud, who misses you dearly, Yaakov Shraga. On Erev Yom Kippur afternoon, I received a response from the Rosh Yeshiva who wrote as follows. Being in the army can teach us a lesson in Avodas Hashem, because really we are all in his army. A soldier doesn't ask questions about where he was commanded to go. Therefore, don't let your spirit get you down, because you are exactly where Hashem wants you. A broken heart has an easier opportunity to do tshuva, and this is a gift that Hashem has given you in your current situation. This letter served as a yesodistic outlook on the rest of my army service. I would constantly look back at it to remind myself that I am exactly where Hashem wants me. My service finished a year later, and I returned to my Hezder yeshiva. At this point, my relationship with the kehilla really grew. I would constantly come to speak with the Rosh Yeshiva. I started building a relationship with Rav Daniel, and from time to time, being that I was coming from a different background than the typical chassid of the Rosh Yeshiva, I always felt that the Torah that the Rosh Yeshiva was teaching was shaykh for every type of Jew. Therefore, sometimes I would try to bring either modern Orthodox Americans or Dati Leumi Israelis to come to shiurim that the kehilla would be having. People always ask me, I don't get it. You hold yourself as such a chassid of the Rosh Yeshiva. You say he's your Rav. But l'maaseh, you're not chassidish. If he's your Rav, how come you haven't changed the way you look or where you live just to be like him? I try to explain that this isn't who the Rosh Yeshiva is. He never once commented on the way I dress, or the yeshiva I went to, or the fact that I served in the army. He always taught me, Lo la'afoch et hatafel le'ikar. This is what I learned from him. Fast forward 2 years from being in the army, I was in Yerushalayim on October 7th, Simchas Torah. My day started like anyone else's. I had plans to go daven by Yosef Ziv and dance with the kehilla by Hakafos. I even had plans to eat a Suda by Nachman Vidislavsky. Sipur amiti. That changed big time. I was woken up with the sirens, which were followed by more and more sirens. Rumors started spreading about a mass attack down south, but nobody had a clue what was going on. We then started hearing that the army was calling up reservists. I didn't think it had anything to do with me, because I was enlisted in a northern brigade, and my unit really had no shaykhs to the south. In the early afternoon, I walked outside and I saw a chayal getting into his car. I asked him, Achi, ma sipur? Ani od lo badakti et telefon. I haven't checked my phone yet. What's going on? He looked at me with a serious face and said, Tivdok et telefon. I did so immediately and already had tons of messages from my commanders and friends informing me that we had been called up and we were to go up north as soon as possible. Within 10 minutes, a friend picked me up and we flew back to Beit Shemesh to get our equipment and say goodbye to our parents. I came home and ran upstairs saying, Mom, Abba, there's a war. There are people killed. There are hostages. Please, can you help me pack? My parents were so shocked to see me. They tried to tell me, maybe you misunderstood. How could this be possible? Little did any of us know that this situation would be something way worse than we ever imagined. We arrived at our base and we were immediately told by our commanders, a war has begun. Prepare your equipment because we should be heading towards the Lebanon border at any moment. Like robots, without any questions, we got to work preparing our guns and bags for battle. Already that night, I informed the Rosh Yeshiva how sad I was to miss Hakafos and that I was called up to the army. The following morning, after dancing with my unit, we started heading towards the border, where we waited for further commands. We waited and waited, and were eventually stationed on the border of Lebanon for what I didn't know to be would be 5 long and bitter months. On October 7th alone, I had 3 friends that were killed. Over the course of the next few months, I lost even more friends. I never experienced what it was like to be at a friend's funeral until this war. The feelings were unbelievably painful. I felt like my emunah was being tested every day, over and over. That Hanukkah, I was stationed in an ambush assignment on the border. We spent 2 weeks inside of the bush that you see on the screen in freezing cold and rain, making sure that if Hezbollah were to try and surprise us, we would be waiting for them. The night before Hanukkah, I was very down. Besides for being tired and freezing, I was devastated to not be able to celebrate Hanukkah in a normal way. I didn't have a menorah, and I was confused with my avodah for this Hanukkah, being that the situation was so unordinary. I decided to send a fax to Rav Shaul with my thoughts and my feelings. While writing the letter, a fellow soldier who was with me on guard at the same time was confused. "What were you writing?" he asked. I told him that I'm sending a fax to Rav Shaul Alter. He looked at me like I'm crazy. "Mi adayin mishtamesh b'mechonat fax?" hu sha'al. Who uses a fax machine? I then explained to him that this is a Hasidic rabbi. He looked at me like I was crazy. I wrote to the Rosh Yeshiva about my situation, not having menorah and being confused with how to connect to Hanukkah. I also told him that the only Hanukkah-related item that I have was a pocket-sized fasemes. So maybe there was a piece that he recommended learning in my current situation. The Rosh Yeshiva responded that being that you have no menorah, tadliק ner בלבך, ותדע שהשם יזברך איתך בכל מקום. Light a candle in your heart and know that Hashem is with you wherever you are. He then recommended learning a fasemes that spoke about the same idea. Wherever you are, Hashem is with you. My mind was blown away, and these few words gave my friends and I a ton of chizuk. Now, at the moment, I didn't understand. What does it mean to say, light a candle in your heart? And if, whatever it means, how do you do that? So I called up the Rosh Yeshiva's nephew, Rav Mordechai Shlita, and I asked him, what does it mean to light these 2 questions? He told me that just like a candle, כמו שלוקחים נר ומכניסים אותו לתוך חדר, והוא יכול להאיר את החושך הגשמי, כך גם ככל שיהודי יותר מתחבר לאמונה ומכריז שאין עוד מלבדו, הוא יכול באמת להאיר את החושך. These words really kept us and our minds clear through the entire Hanukkah. After 5 months on the Lebanon border, my unit was transferred to Gaza. Our mission was simple: look for the hostages and destroy Hamas. We were going to be spending Shavuos in Gaza, and my friends and I had a hard time with the fact that instead of being in the Beis Medrash over Shavuos, we were going to be spending Yontiv in Khan Yunis, where there wasn't yet a running yeshiva. As always, I asked the Rosh Yeshiva how to feel about this, and how my friends and I could receive the Torah while in battle. The Rosh Yeshiva looked at me and smiled and said, "Ya'kov, et haTorah kibalnu bamidbar." You can receive Torah wherever you are. With those words, we were makabel the Torah in the desert, literally, knowing that this was our tafkid. After getting out of Gaza, I decided to go on vacation to New York. I wanted to focus on my learning without any of the noise of the war. I was learning in Shar Yashiv in the 5 towns, and I was learning really well. While I was there, I asked around if there are any Hasidim of the Rosh Yeshiva in the community. So I was told that there's this guy, his name is Willie Bear, they say he's a Ger Chassid. I made sure to find him, and Baruch Hashem, we were zocher to meet a few tzaddikim together. Since then, we became pretty good friends. A few days before Rosh Hashanah, I sent a letter to the Rosh Yeshiva updating him on what I've been up to and wishing him a Shana Tova. The Rosh Yeshiva responded warmly, wishing me a Shana Tova, and giving me a bracha that my learning should continue well. An hour after receiving that fax from the Rosh Yeshiva, I got a phone call that changed my life. My commander called me, and he said, Achi, ukpatznu leLebanon, we just got called to Lebanon. Get on a plane, we need you. I was out of yeshiva and on a plane that same day. After landing, I said a quick hello and goodbye to my parents and headed towards the border. Now, some of the oila might be wondering, what does it mean when you get called up to the army? Let me explain. Before heading into battle, each unit has a special logistics base where they go to sign in and get their equipment and get their gun. Now, because I was coming from America, I showed up to the logistics base 2 days after the unit got called up. הגעתי לבסיס יומיים מאוחר יותר מכולם. I showed up at the base, and I was looking around frantically, asking, where is all my stuff? What should I do? The base was empty. Finally, I saw a Jeep pull up with a face I recognized, and I looked at him and I said, oh, can you help me? I just got here from America. He looked at me and said, I don't care you came from America. Go figure things out on your own. And that was when I realized that I'm no longer in the 5 towns and I'm in a war zone. Eventually, I found my way back to my unit, and after a few days of training, we crossed the border into Lebanon. Now, it's hard to describe the feelings that I felt as we crossed the border. We hiked alongside the border fence until we reached a wall where there was a hole that led into Lebanon. With explosions all around us, the commander looks at you and says, Yalla, go. And then you just gotta go. Our mission was to conquer a few towns in southern Lebanon. We were attacked by drones and Hezbollah soldiers a number of times. Baruch Hashem, nobody was hurt, but it wasn't easy to handle. After a few weeks of fighting, my unit took over a large villa where we were ordered to wait for a few days. In this villa, we found a tunnel, and we had to have 2 soldiers guarding the tunnel 24/7 to make sure nobody came out of it. While it was my turn to guard the tunnel, I saw a picture album from the Lebanon family that lived in this house. I picked up the album, going through the pictures, and I see pictures of the family, simchas and family pictures and weddings and vacations. And I look at the pictures, then I look at the house that we shot missiles through every window and threw grenades into every room. And I felt a little bit bad. I said to my commander who I was with, I said to him, I have to be honest with you. This is very painful. You see the family that lived here. And then you look at their house, and it's unbelievable. Well, look what happened. And he looked at me, he said, I totally understand, but there's a tunnel in their kitchen. We had the schus to be in Lebanon over Yom Kippur. We davened hidden in a bush as we were camouflaged to blend into it. After Kol Nidre, I asked my commander if I could say a few words about Yom Kippur. I told my guys that my Rebbe, Rav Shaul Alter, asked the question to his Hasidim in Rosh Hashanah just a few days ago. He asked, it says in the Piyut, Achod Ketana, Tichle Shana V'Kil. The simple understanding of these words is that the year and its curses should end. So ask the Rosh Yeshiva, Mimon Avshach, the year is going to end no matter what. Why then do we need to ask the year to end? And the Rosh Yeshiva answered as follows, and this is what we heard while we were in Lebanon. Tichle is a lashon of kli, a vessel. And the Rosh Yeshiva explained that Tafshin Pei Dalid will be remembered as a year where Jewish blood was spilled like water. Entire Jewish communities were destroyed. And the Rosh Yeshiva wasn't talking about religious communities. But what did this year teach us, he asked. What changes did we make in our lives because of it? Tichle, let's make a vessel, let's make a kli out of this year and move forward with it and not just let the changes that we made in our lives slip away. Hearing this idea meant so much to me and all my friends. We each suffered so much pain and loss. Rather than wishing that the year would just be over, the Rosh Yeshiva taught us to take our experiences that we went through, use them as a kli to grow. Halavai, we should be zochet to see continue avas chinam in Klal Yisrael, which will lead us all to the Geula Shlema B'Karov.